So why would I compare myself to, say, I was at my fittest when I was 28, or I was at my wealthiest when I was 33, or I was at my most accomplished when I was 37. Well, every single one of those factors have changed, if not the biggest one being time, age. So that's hard for me, but I'm doing it by nature. And it's one thing I have to work on every single day. Like, everything is different now, and so Nicole, don't compare yourself to old Nicole, because new Nicole's here and she's just as enviable, right? One day I'll wish I was this person. So let me enjoy the now.
I'm Jessica Vallant. I'm a physical therapist, women's health expert, and Pilates teacher, and my goal is to help all women feel strong, safe, and secure in their bodies. In this podcast, I'll share expert advice, facts, amazing guests, stories, compassion, and hope to help you meet your body in all seasons of life. We are talking to someone today who has been on my dream list to interview since I started this podcast. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Nicole Walters. I first heard Nicole on a separate podcast years ago. Our son was a baby. I remember it clearly. I was walking him in the stroller around a lake, and I was listening to this podcast. And I absolutely knew in my head I needed to find this woman and follow what she had to teach. So I found Nicole online, started consuming all of her content, realized she is an amazing woman. Not only that, an amazing business coach. So for the past 2 years, I've been working with her actually as she coaches me through different aspects of the business. And I can tell you wholeheartedly, she is as compassionate, as funny, as determined, as smart as she seems online. And then earlier this year, she gave birth to her fourth daughter. She has 3 amazing adoptive daughters. And this year, at the age of 40, she gave birth to her fourth daughter. And I knew I wanted to have Nicole on, not only to bring all those aspects that I mentioned, but also to really dive into what it has been like to get pregnant, go through pregnancy, go through birth, recovering from a birth. She's still in the postpartum phase, what that looks like in midlife and beyond. I knew this would be a powerful conversation. It absolutely is. You can find Nicole on Instagram, on her website, NicoleWalters.com. I will have all the links below. She also has a New York Times best-selling book out called Nothing is Missing. She has an amazing podcast that we touch on called Tell Me More. And I am so excited to bring this very real, very raw, and very inspiring conversation to you. Here we go with Nicole Walters. All right. Thank you, everybody, so much for being here. I am bringing you truly one of my favorite people in the world, Nicole Walters. You heard the introduction that I gave, so you know all of the kind of nuts and bolts and all of that about her, but you're going to get to know the real Nicole today. And we're going to talk about something so important, which is postpartum time, being a mom, what that looks like, your journey towards being a mom, who you are before, who you are after. I mean, we're going to fit all this into a short amount of time. But first off, Nicole, thank you for being here, and tell everyone your story, whatever you want them to know about you.
Well, it's so interesting. First and foremost, I'm glad to be here. You are easily one of my favorite people, and I love your crew. I love your people because they're all hardworking, real, honest, gritty, down to earth, mamas and women who've accomplished a lot. So I feel at home here because we're all also a little bit of a hot mess and doing our best every day.
Exactly. That wraps it up right there.
Yeah. Yes. So if that isn't the definition of who I am, just to start with, on top of that, I've got 4 babies. I just had my 4th at 40, and my first 3 I adopted, but we're really blessed to all be one family. So I've got a 26-year-old, a 23-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 7-month-old. And I am a wife, to my second husband, who is incredible and, my first true love. And I've got 3 dogs, one of which is almost 20. I mean, it's just a big bag of crazy around here, So I run a consultancy. I'm an author. I've, had a reality TV show. Like, I've done a lot of the things. And right now I'm just knee deep in Mamaville. And honestly, we're going to talk about it here, figuring it all out.
Absolutely. So to dive right into that, like literally right before I hit record, we were talking and you said this is your first podcast
Mhm.
since the book tour. So that's been a couple of years.
Yep.
And, talking about getting back to kind of yourself. And we were joking about what does that even mean? And so what does that mean? Like in the most basic sense, how do you feel different now compared to maybe 2 years ago or right before giving birth? Like what does feel different and in what way?
So I would say I could probably put into two categories, right? So the one category is obviously my body feels different, and some of that, is this guessing game of, is this just aging? Like, would this have happened anyways? Or is this a baby thing that I think will change later? And also, how much time is later? Is it later now? And every day, trust me, I ask myself, can it be later now? Because I mean, truly, when I look back to March, where I was saying to myself, and March meaning, maybe 5 months ago, for those of you who are listening to this at a later time, but 5 months ago, I was saying to myself, okay, well, you just had your baby, you're 3 months out, you were waiting till this baby came out of you to feel normal, quote unquote. And then I was like, why don't I feel normal? And now I look back at that time and I say, oh, girl, you were nowhere near. Grant yourself some grace, please. Like, you just had a baby 90 days ago. What were you thinking? And now that I'm, 7 months out, I'm like, the only thing I know that's different is I still feel that desire to accomplish and get back to the same speed and handle the same volume of tasks. And I also miss my mental acuity, like I'm still as smart as I always have been. I just feel like it takes a little longer to get there, like my brain is foggier, and the only thing I know differently now from, 5 months ago is that I'll probably, God willing, feel better, even better in 3 months, but for right now, whatever it is just what it is. And
Yeah.
that is that's a lesson in itself.
Right. And do you feel when you talk about kind of that drive,
Mhm.
at least as of right now, do you think the drive is to go back to doing like same schedule, same things that you were doing before? Or do you find even the drive and the desire or the goals have changed?
So the goals have changed, obviously, whenever someone's gone through divorce and, divorce itself is a major turning point because you're saying, look, I was married for 12 years. What was isn't what will be, so I already was looking to overturn the apple cart and try something new. And the same thing applies with starting a family or growing your family. You're looking to overturn what was, and start something new. But that also, I think, for a lot of high achieving women, always, comes along with our inclination. I wanted to say terrible ability, but like inclination, right, to compare ourselves to sort of what we identify as our best moments, and it just all factors have changed, right? So why would I compare myself to, say, I was at my fittest when I was 28, or I was at my wealthiest when I was 33, or I was at my most accomplished when I was 37. Well, every single one of those factors have changed, if not the biggest one being time, age. So that's hard for me, but I'm doing it by nature. And it's one thing I have to work on every single day. Like everything is different now, and so Nicole, don't compare yourself to old Nicole, because new Nicole's here and she's just as enviable, right? One day I'll wish I was this person. So let me enjoy the now.
And that's such a good point. That's so interesting because we do, right? We're always evolving and always changing, as we should. I mean, I don't want to be 22 again. Like, I don't
Never.
want to be 22 again. I want to go give that girl a hug and be like, we're going to be
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
It's going to be okay.
Yes.
So we should expect ourselves to evolve. We expect that of other people. And yet somehow we think when women have a baby that we should go right back to where we were before.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Why is that the one situation where we, in theory, aren't allowed to change? Your body needs to go back. Your work life needs to go back. You got to do it in 6 weeks and go right back to where you were.
I do think that society affirms it at every turn. I was just talking to my husband about this the other day. The first thing people to ask me is, oh, we just had a baby. They'll say, oh, how long ago? And, I'll say, oh, she's 7 months. And the next statement is, you look great, right? You look great, or, oh, you're bouncing back. And I mean, I'm grateful to get that statement, right? It's a nice thing to say, but I find it very odd when I reflect on it, that one, is the thing that's, it's not like, how is that for you? Or are you loving it? Or how do you feel? Or is there anything you need? Or what's changed? I mean, there are so many other things, but the first thing that people call out is what my body looks like, because, we're aware that having a baby is difficult and challenging, and one of the hardest things a woman, and amazing things a woman can go through. But, the goal, right, is for us to not look like we ever did. I guess, like that's just absolutely bonkers to me. And then two, as quickly as possible, so my greatest accolade apparently after having a child is that I don't look like I have a child, and so I think that, speaks to the worst parts of me already internally that are, affirmed in hearing the goal is to get back where you were, so I'm fighting against it every day because it's a step fully into who I am now.
Yep. And and just knowing you and talking to you some along the journey, like even deciding, let's go back a little and talk about what was the process, even like deciding that you wanted to get pregnant in your late 30s. Like tell us that whole journey. Like what was the before, what was the process of know right away, all of it.
Yeah. So I mean, for people who don't know, like Jessica's like one of my go-tos for everything, for body, for fitness, for rationality and sensibility on this journey, because as you all hear, she's the calming voice, right? Like it's that person in the room who's like, oh yeah, no, everything's horrible, but it's okay. It's okay. We have a stretch for that. We have a, like that's literally what my life is. It's like, just like there's a stretch for that, y'all. It'll be fine. So that's like between stretches and protein shakes, you've kept me together, girls. So I appreciate you. And so back in the beginning, we talked about this, where I was kind of like, I think we're going to start, when I'd first gotten married to Alex, it was my second marriage. I was like, I think I'm going to have a kid. And, it was great knowing you because you were like, yeah, did it. No regrets. Love my family. Would do it again. Like it was all the things. And so it was nice because in that very beginning part, it's hard to find people over 35 that have gone through the experience and haven't faced some sort of judgment or feedback or negativity, even down to their medical providers, and I'm not just talking about the labeling of being, a geriatric pregnancy, right? I'm talking about the natural underlying overtone that this is going to be a difficult process for you. Now, I don't want to undermine or minimize that for a lot of women, it is a challenge just because of science, not because you're broken, not because it's just science, right? But the thing that we held in our conversation at the beginning, knowing that I was starting the journey at 39, was there will be a baby at the end of this journey, and families are made lots of different ways. And I think it was easier for me because I was already an adoptive mother and, but I got my girls earlier at 3, 11, and 14. So, for me, I really just wanted to grow our family. I really, the baby can come from anywhere, look like anything. I don't really care. Like, just bring us some more love in our home so that we can, raise another little collectively. And so I think the hardest part was kind of in that early stage, looking for voices that affirmed possibility and not negativity.
Yep. Oh, that's such a good way to say that. And did you find that, or was it hard to find that? I mean,
you were one of the few. I'm not going to lie. It's nice that social media exists, but social media, even within that, it's difficult because everyone has an angle, right? And you're one of the few people out there who's just saying like, look, everybody's journey is different. Just feel good in where you are. What does your body say to you? And I think that those are the voices you want to listen for. If there was like a green flag, it's that. If the person is affirming that you can take this journey based on what feels right for your body and your family, that's probably something to lean into. And so those were the types of voices I looked for. I wasn't looking for the person who was like, if you do this miracle fertility thing, it will work. If you take this shake, it will work. If you drink raw milk and do this vitamin regimen and, do these oils, it will work. Because frankly, I am a modern medicine believer, and I do believe in conventional medicine and doing whatever works with your choices. But I also believe in just the power of the tongue and positive. I'm a God girl. I believe in faith. And what I can tell you, the two things that worked best for us was we still went and looked at the IVF route, and we said, let's get some data. right? Like, let me just, like, do I have any eggs? What does it look like? How many follicles do I have? Like, what's happening? And when we first went in, they told me I had 5 follicles, and they weren't sure they even saw eggs on all of the follicles, and that at a minimum they wanted 8, to even say like, hey, this makes sense. But that was prior to doing any sort of, meds to stimulate things, or that was just like kind of a cold read. And I remember being devastated, coming out of that, because, it just sounded like this may be a struggle, even though science was just doing what it normally does, not broken, but just normally does. And then, fortunately, because we'd already decided on mindset, and because I talked to you and I talked to so many others, everyone told me, girl, you need 1. Just remember, people will tell you low counts, low this, low whatever. You need 1 healthy egg, 1 healthy embryo, 1 healthy baby. And that just completely kept me in the game, and, we decided, look, before we do anything, let's just try. Let's just see before we even start counting ourselves out, and I got pregnant 2 weeks later, and I was so grateful. I know that's not everyone's journey. And sometimes for some people who are hearing this and on that journey, it can be hard to hear that if it's not matching with yours. And I'm extending the empathy that goes along with that journey, but also know we were ready to do whatever it takes also. We were ready to do whatever it takes. So we were really fortunate, but that wasn't the end of the negativity, unfortunately.
No, exactly. And I think that is so important. Everyone listening, I want you to hear that exactly what Nicole said. There are people out there who will promise you so many things, and it's everywhere. I mean, business and online and fitness and all the things, and it's so tempting. And I even want to promise you things. Like, I really want to.
Because I want it for you.
I'll do it. But the thing is, can you find voices who you trust and who are encouraging to you, and who your gut just says, oh, okay, this person has my back. Like, they are going to hold my hand. It might be 2 steps forward and 1 step back, or it might be nuanced and I have to find, but they're going to hold my hand through it. And they believe in me and my ability to be resilient in whatever comes my way. And I just think that's so important. And you might be able to find it online, maybe in person, only you know. And I'll say my IVF journey was completely opposite of yours. I mean, it was like a 2-year process with surgery and a failed route. And then we had to do it one more time. And the doctor said, you have a 10% chance. And but yet here he is. Like,
and we both have babies. Right. That's the thing that people should hear that, we both have babies.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And so whatever your path looks like, we can't promise what it'll look like, but there are people who can hold your hand through it and support you, and who have been there. And
even if it's adoption, I know that there's a beauty, magic, and I don't want to minimize the miracle of carrying. Having been on both sides of it, I can tell you, I've never said this anywhere, but I would say this with you because I love you so much, is that, my biggest concern was, will I feel differently about my kiddos? Like, I don't know if a lot of people are confident saying that out loud because it sounds so awful, is like, will I love one less because I have this internal connection and all that? And I can tell you categorically, unequivocally, I have a group of 4 daughters. These are all my babies. I do not feel any differently. The only thing that is different about having a biological child is that I can see some features. She looks so much like her dad that I'm like, I don't even know about that, but I can see some facial features, but she looks like her sisters, and also some behavioral things like, oh, she sleeps on her belly, like I sleep on my belly, but little stuff like that. Outside of that, these are just my babies, so absolutely. If you're someone who's saying to yourself, I don't know about adoption, or I don't know about older babies, or I don't, just keep your heart and your mind open, because you just never, ever know how you're going to be called to mother, and that's a real blessing.
Absolutely. And if you guys want all the details, Nicole doesn't hold things back. Like, that's something you should know. Go online, go to her amazing podcast, and we'll give all the links at the end, but you will get all the details. And so I highly recommend you dive in. But I do want to talk about one specific part of it, because we talk so much here about advocating for yourself, learning how to use your voice. And you and Alex have a really specific story about how this came into play. So I would love for you to tell everybody about that.
Okay. So this story is, it's big for us, but I also realize everyone's got kind of crazy delivery stories. That's what I'm hearing. I would like, you make a birth plan, you go in there and it goes rogue, right? So that's very much our life. So we, we're coming up on delivery, and this was an induced labor. It was not that, which again wasn't the plan, but we were in the middle of the California wildfires. My blood pressure was starting to soar after a very smooth pregnancy. I mean, my pregnancy was, just the normal things, a little nausea here, a little nausea, but it was great. So I get in and we're going through this process, and I'm assigned a nurse who, first of all, this is not dinging nurses, educators, teachers. I would step in front of a bus for you all. You all are heroes. But holy cow, you also know what it's like when you have a newbie in the mix. And I had a first year nurse who was assigned to, my care, I guess. And I mean, there were literal times where I could tell she was leaving the room to like check the books, you know what I mean? To make sure she was following protocol. And bless her heart, I'm going through the process and I can feel myself, just dilating. And she's like, yeah, but I don't think it's supposed to be happening that quickly, but I'm not supposed to check you that frequently. And, and so after a couple hours, I'm like, I think I'd like to get an epidural, which, again, every mom will make your own choice that works for you. I'm one who's not meant for superhero status. And I get my epidural, and then we're going through the process, and, I'm waiting for the relief that I've heard shows up. And at this point, I'm not feeling any relief. And so I proceed to, speak to this nurse and say, hey, I'm in a lot of pain, and I don't think this is right. Plus I can stand up. And she's like, yeah. She's like, that doesn't make any sense, and I was like, yeah. I was like, I don't think this epidural worked. And that was when I found out sometimes epidurals don't work. One of the little things they leave off the fine print, when you're having the fun of making a baby. So tell your kids, birth control, tell your kids that one. But then, in addition to that, I could feel myself with my labor proceeding. And, her understanding was they'd stop the Pitocin. So she was like, yeah, I don't think it's supposed to proceed. I think we're kind of giving it a break. And I was like, yeah, I think at this point, science is just doing what it's going to do. So I can feel something's happening. And, long story short, at this point, my husband was like, we're not going to continue to negotiate with, your pain and your comfort and what you believe is happening with your body, right down to the position I was in. You can labor in a variety of positions, and there was one that was most comfortable for me and appeared to have the least stress on the baby. And she was uncomfortable putting me in that position. She was like, I don't feel like that's, I don't want to be in that one too long. And I was like, this is what feels right for my body. And so it came to a point where I was in so much pain that, I looked at my husband and I said, hey, you're going to have to find someone to help me. And he was like, absolutely. And he left, went down the hall, and he found a nurse. We were seeking out, if you're familiar with Black maternal mortality rates, they are very, very high, and the highest of any, racial group in the United States. And so we went in with that in mind, and knowing that we may run into some friction, around believing pain or understanding that something's serious or researching extra complications. And, all of this is scientifically backed. We weren't looking for a problem, but we were just aware. And so my husband went and he actually found a Black nurse, and said, in the simplest of ways, my wife needs you. We need you. Can you come in? And she came right in, and I told her, I was in a lot of pain. My epidural wasn't working. And, she called in the other nurse because obviously there's a, chain of care command, and at that point I had to tell that nurse, pull out my old CEO hat. And I looked her right in the face and I said, I'll use a different name, but I said, Heather, unfortunately I'm going to be removing you from my service at this time. There's a loss of confidence in your abilities. And so I'm going to have to remove you from service. And everyone kind of chuckled in the room because I guess I sounded pretty sane for a woman who, plot twist, was 10 centimeters plus 2. So baby girl was crowning, when they finally checked me out. Yeah. So delivered my sweet baby girl unmedicated. The epidural did indeed fail, and I absolutely was proceeding with my labor. But it was, again, no tearing, beautiful experience. I'm glad we were able to get everyone in the room and ready to catch this baby. But that was because we retained autonomy. Me and my partner communicated well, and we entered into that experience ready to speak on behalf of myself and my child, by any means necessary. And I just want to shout out all mamas over 35 because I think we do this a little bit better. And that's one of the things I was so grateful for about not being my bashful, nervous 22, 25-year-old self, because I wouldn't have done that. And I don't know where I would have been today if I did.
Yeah, absolutely. You weren't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's two really important points. You and Alex talked about it beforehand. Like
Mm-hmm. Yes, we did.
Team going in. So
Mm-hmm.
we think so much about advocating for ourselves, but you also, it's a skill to learn how to advocate for someone else.
Yes, it is.
And to have that conversation is so important, even if it's just making sure you're on the same page. I mean,
For sure.
Sometimes you don't have time to go into the details, but you guys were on the same page with the same end goal, and he was willing to step in to an uncomfortable situation to really lift you up in what you needed. And that's huge. And then, you weren't afraid to hurt feelings.
No, that's going to happen. I mean, y'all, for my over 40s, for my 50 plusers in the room, this is how we're built. I truly, truly feel so sorry and extend apologies to anyone who encountered me pregnant at 40 because you couldn't spell my name wrong on a Starbucks cup. Okay. Because I knew who I was and I knew what I would tolerate. So it's like, and then just like after, I mean, I swear that any energy that I have to extend to people on some BS, that was delivered with the baby as well. It's not within me anymore. So it's like, I just have no patience and I just do not care. And also I think any mamas know, and I was like this with my 3 girls, but it got worse once I carried unmedicated. My tolerance level for people who will waste my time or mess with my family or even are, just sort of buzzing with drama and negativity. Like if you're just too much, you will be removed. There's just no getting around it. Like I just don't have capacity, and I like that me, when I talk about, having change, this process birthed a new me too, that's even more confident knowing that like I have the ability to open my mouth and save lives, my own and my child, and to ask for what I need for my husband and know that it'll show up. And there was just a lot of healing that happened in that experience as well. And I'm grateful for that because God forbid, something comes up again, but I know I've got what I need. So.
Right. And do you find, and just curiosity, like, how did you feel your relationship with your body, I guess, after that? Like after you went through that with your body, do you feel or even view it any differently now than you did before?
So mixed bag, right? I think that the thing that I felt I did not like being pregnant. So I'll say that out loud. I think sometimes it's not popular to say, people will say, especially if you desired the baby or want the baby. I loved carrying my daughter. I love the outcome of my daughter. I love the connection and I was always in awe of what my body was doing. Like it trips me out, especially when I hold her and look at her. We are 7 months in and I still am like, I grew that liver? Like, it's so weird to me, like I just cannot believe that when she lays on me and sleeps and, hormones, I'm about to get teary about it, but when she lays on me and sleeps, I cannot believe that she's heard my heart from inside and out. Like, it's just, my brain can't even wrap around it. And I still didn't like being pregnant. But the things I didn't like about being pregnant was it hurt, like a normal person, right? Like working out, like doesn't feel good. You know what I mean? Like it hurt. I didn't like the inconvenience, like just even stuff like being able to bend over. I couldn't bend over the way I wanted to. I didn't like the hormonal changes. I didn't like feeling like every single day I didn't know what the day was going to bring. Could I eat today? Could I not eat today? Would I have enough energy to make it till 3? Would I not? Will I need a nap? Like it was such a relinquishing of control that I needed in my learning, right? So when you talk about my relationship with my body, that was the mixed bag lesson is, things will happen to your body if you are using it and using it well, whether that is being an athlete or working out or creating life, and what's beautiful is your body's resilient. And if you love it well and you listen to it and you nurture it and you treat it with care, it can bounce back. And even if it bounces back differently, whatever version you have is still meant to sustain you. So I think I'm just a lot more appreciative of what my body's been able to go through. And, can't look at 4 kids and not think, I better eat a vegetable because these kids, I'm like, who's going to pay for all this? So definitely more of that mindset now going forward. Like, oh, I have a 7-month-old, better eat a salad. So that's kind of where I am right now.
Better do something.
Better eat a salad and do some crunches, girl, because this child's going to need you for a while. These kids like to spend money. So
And how, just knowing so many women in this space, we're the women who were told you can do anything, right? Like we were that first
All of
generation.
it.
You can do
Mm-hmm.
anything you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then we end up doing all of the things. Like, look at what you've done and look at what you've built and doing all of it. But then at some point we kind of ask ourselves, is this actually, do I want to do all the things still? And sometimes the answer is yes.
Oh, for sure.
We found, like, just as your time has automatically changed, and we were even just talking about sleep before we started, as those things have changed, do you find your mind going to places of, you know what, I still want to do all the things, or maybe there are some things I actually want to leave behind, or maybe there's new things I want to add?
Yeah. I feel like you're right. To being this first generation, it's kind of like messed up, because I remember the affirmation of like, you're a girl, you can do it all, felt so new and fresh and wonderful, because we didn't want to feel limited. But that also led to a whole generation of burnt out, overworked moms who were, I also think it's why the divorce rate looks like it does in a lot of ways, single married moms, who are like, I am married, but I am a single mom and I'm also the breadwinner, and so having sort of found myself in that situation and doing it all already, I still say to myself, and I'm still doing a lot of the same things, but I have a partner who's really participatory. I've got a family that's very involved and loving. Like my girls are just incredible. But when it comes down to wanting to do everything, no, like and maybe it'll be different, right? Because I am postpartum still. So right now it's like what really beats cuddling my baby? I don't know. It is really a hard sell. If you can, even my husband's like, oh, look, we've signed up for a dance class recently. Like one of those, you remember those Arthur Murray, and I don't know if you don't sponsor the podcast, you should, Arthur Murray, but those Arthur Murray dance class studios, the old school ones where you go for your first wedding dance. So we walked by, and there's one in our neighborhood, and we saw people practicing like a waltz, and we were like, we should sign up for a class. So we've just been doing that for fun once a week, and it's been great, doing that. But even then, I'm like, okay, hang out with my husband for a dance class, which I love, and we have the best time, or cuddle my baby. Like it's just such a, so it's just really hard to say. The old me that used to be like, I'm going to be a billionaire and open up like 15 philanthropical, places. And I'm going to rescue every child, and I'm going to help, feed the world. And I'm going to, help every woman be an amazing business owner. Like, I had all these massive, big aspirations, but it isn't lost on me that a lot of it starts with home and wellness and care. And, if I'm able to be here for the long run, I think I'm able to do a lot more. So, right now in this season, it's about nurturing and healing and being good at home. But I do think in the future it'll evolve and I'll get back out there. But just not even looking at it. I'm okay being in the present.
And that's another just great thing to pull from that is, you're just deciding what is right just right now. Right now, my baby fell asleep on me.
That's it.
Need to do.
It's good.
You don't need to know even what happens tomorrow.
Nope.
Or a week from now. Yeah, this is what's right for me right now. And I dance class once a week. We do. I'm just sitting here kind of feeling the same of, even my kids, just 7th and 2nd grade. But I'm like, okay, I think I'm just maybe ready to get back to some of those goals.
Yes.
But then, it's okay, but is that who I am now still?
Right.
Goals still relevant, and it's okay if they're not. Like, it is okay if I need to evolve my goals for where I am now and what matters to me now. And
that's good.
Yeah, because we don't very much. I feel like we sometimes chain ourselves to goals or who we were before, feeling like I have to get back to that.
Or what we were told or what we see. Social media is a monster that way sometimes, where if there's someone you're always kind of like in lockstep with on social, and then you see them hitting certain marks, you start thinking, oh, well, I need to do that thing too, or I need to do that thing too. And it's kind of like, like I look at, I had this conversation with Alex recently, I'm really blessed. Like I'm 40 and I've hit most marks. Like I don't have like an Oscar. I mean, nominated, but I don't have like an Oscar. I don't have, a Grammy. I can't sing, but you know what I mean? Like I haven't hit some of those marks, but for the most part, I've done everything, that like, in the media entertainment world. And so I don't really feel it's interesting because I love helping people at the core. That's what I like to do, is help other people hit their goals. And if that's what I spend the rest of my life doing, that's enough, and I don't need a bajillion dollars. I like the simple house I have. I have room for a little garden. As long as my kids' needs are met and we have enough and I have a little extra to donate, that's great. But it's just really amazing how when I was still pursuing sort of hitting those milestones with my old 30-year-old brain of, the brain that when you're 20, you're like, I'm going to be married and have all my kids before 30, like it's the same brain that I'm going to hit all these goals before 40, be a millionaire, get this book title, blah, blah, all these things. Well, I've done all those things. So now I'm like, the blessing is I'm 40. I don't have to do anything else. Like all I have to do is be a good person and raise my babies and, be kind and try to get better every single day and be as healthy as possible and pour into them so they can realize their goals, and pour into my husband so he can realize his goals, because he's still a young 36-year-old something. So, he can get out there, and I know I'm like, hello, sprightly, so just pouring into him, but that's it, and the goals have changed. If you'd asked me, gosh, 7 years ago, what I'd be aiming to do, it would be like another bigger show or another bigger syndication. And it's not like I don't want those things. I just don't want them at any price, So I'm okay with them taking time to arrive so that they fit, and that they come without compromise.
Yes. And to that end, I know also I want to talk about your podcast.
Sure.
The links will be below, everybody. But you've kind of birthed, it's not a new baby, really. You've had the podcast for a long time, but it is in a new iteration that I feel like is just the reality of everything you're saying. Like everything you just said about who you want to be, how you want to show up, this podcast. So tell us about this.
Yeah, I just basically stopped giving an F. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. Like, I'm telling you,
It's a great way to describe it.
It's the best way I could describe it. And I feel like, again, anyone over 40 or, my 50-year-old sisters and older, we can't find them anymore. I don't know what else to tell you. And God never should have let me deliver this baby unmedicated. He knew what would happen. Like, he knew if he'd given me some ease. But now that that's happened, there's pretty much nothing. And it's just interesting because sometimes I'll interact with people who knew me in my previous life, and I can tell that they think they're talking to the old me, especially because my energy is more like, okay, but it's because I just don't care anymore. And a lot of that's come from this new podcast. So my previous podcast was kind of taking people on that entrepreneurial journey, sharing with them, the experience of growing a business from scratch and balancing momhood. And that's still happening, because I still do all of those things. But there's bigger stuff happening in this world. And if I have to turn around and look at my kids and say, Mom, what did you do? How did you use your platform to comment? How did you support? What were your values? Were you clear about it? And I'm going to be really transparent. Part of it was because there was, I would get DMs and buzz from people who, seemed to think I believed differently, or maybe didn't believe that I knew about certain issues or cared about them. And I was like, oh, no. I've got all the opinions. But my greatest gift is I'm very good at facilitating conversations of people in the room and holding space for whatever your opinion is, as long as it's not harmful or racist or sexist or bigoted. We're clear about that. Those things are bad, but having people in the room to share where their perspective is. So we've been able to have on a trans activist, which was a wonderful conversation, no matter where people stand on the issues of, well, it's a human rights issue, but if people are evolving in their understanding of the trans community, most people do not know someone who's trans because there's less than 1% in the United States. They've never met anyone, they don't talk to anyone, and they probably never will. And so being able to have a platform to say, well, look, I'm not trying to change your mind or push politics, but I want you to meet this person. Tell us about your life. What happened to you? So at least if you want to continue to believe whatever you want to believe, do it with some information straight from the source, unfiltered from the media, not being sold to sell you a political agenda, but just somebody saying, hey, this is what I've lived. And our most recent episode was with we've had on undocumented immigrants. We had on a child star from, Disney Network, who is super huge, Allison Stoner. And she was talking about the industry, because people have all these conspiracy theories about, Hollywood and all of that. And she's like, look, this part's true and this part isn't, and it's just been amazing to lend the platform I built, to people who have lived experiences that we may not know about, and allow people to kind of formulate their opinions with real data that's unfiltered.
And a real person,
and a real person
behind the news and behind the noise and behind the social media. It's easy to forget that we are real people with and neighbors, and we're built for community. Like we truly are. All the data, all the science tells us that we are the healthiest when we are in community. And women, the health of communities is directly related to the health of its women.
Yes.
So we need to be talking to each other, and if that isn't possible, wherever you are, listening to each other and to voices that we don't always hear. And that we've known from the beginning. I just think that this is you. It's
been so awesome. Yeah, it's been really fun. Thanks for that. Yeah, it's also nice because I think that one thing I'm realizing when I have these conversations, just like you said about everyone kind of boiling down to community, at the end of the conversation, I ask everyone who's on the show, if there was one ask you would have of people who, are listening to your lived experience, like that would help them understand more people like you when they're in the world. The number one thing people say is just be kind and listen. Like, be gentle, be open. And when I tell you, I mean the same thing, whether it is a entertainment industry, famous record producer, if it is a child star, if it is an undocumented immigrant, if it's a trans activist, if it is a sugar baby, like anyone who's been on the episode, they're all just like, be kind and considerate and be open, to recognize that not everyone's like you, but that we all like want love and we want peace and we want food and we want happiness. And I think that's just very telling, because no matter where you are, if you're listening to this, you probably want the same, and so let's start from there. And it's been really powerful. It's been healing for me, and it feels like a good use of my time in this season.
Yes. I can't imagine a better way to wrap all of this up. So tell everybody where they can find you, best places to find you, other than with a baby on your chest.
I know. I was like, if you can find me, I will be in a rocking chair in a nursery. No, you can find me all around the internet at Nicole Walters. My website's NicoleWalters.com. But yeah, you type in Nicole Walters, you'll stumble onto something that'll either make you laugh, make you cry, or definitely make you learn.
Yep. And I will wrap it up by telling everyone, I know we didn't even cover Nicole's amazing business mentorship, but if you are in a place, you are starting a business, if you have a business or even a little idea, a little kernel of a business idea that you want nurtured, but you want to learn real stuff, I mean, she will make you dive into the numbers. I'm going to tell you.
Yes, I will.
I like it, but she makes me do it. This is the woman for you. Go to the website. Like I said, I know we covered everything else, but I think that's how I found you originally.
You're so kind. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. I adore you. I appreciate you.
You're my favorite, and it was my joy. Bye, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening today. I would love it if you could take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. It means a lot to us, and it helps our content get out to more women who need it. You can find more of my resources at my website, jessicavallant.com, or find me on YouTube at Jessica Vallant and Instagram at Jessica S. Vallant.